Hello and welcome to the Sleep and Stress Workshop with Newcastle United Foundation. My name is Sam Cooper. I work in the Health and Wellbeing team at Newcastle United Foundation, and we've built this workshop around our Be a Game Changer mental health campaign. So why a sleep and stress workshop? Well, we've designed this workshop to help deliver positive outcomes on the topics requested most often by individuals and organisations. The session is not fluff, it's based on well-researched methods to help people improve their stress and consequently their sleep. The session is self-reflective. Participants are encouraged to consider their own circumstances and lifestyles, and the session is interactive to meet the demands of different learning styles. So, objectives. What do we want to look at and what do we want to achieve by the end of this session? We want to understand what the term stress means. We want to understand what causes stress, outline to improving sleeping habits, and how to relieve stress. We want to know how we can affect those things, and create a plan for positive outcomes. So first of all, what is stress? It's important that we have an understanding of where we are. Every time we deliver this workshop, people will be coming in at different levels with their own understanding of what stress is. So by all means, pause this presentation to reflect for a couple of minutes on what you think stress is. You could make notes. If you're in groups, even though you might be isolated, if you are in groups, if you're at work, you might be able to reflect with other people. But have a think about what stress means to you. Excellent. So, stress is a physiological response. As such, the symptoms of stress can be both mental and physical. Stress is not solely a mental feeling or mental illness. Stress can be incredibly impactful on people's lives, and it affects people in different ways. So person to person, we can experience stress in very different ways. There is no right or wrong amount of stress. So this image contextualizes stress. It helps us think about stress in a different way, rather than it being something that's just in our heads as a strange feeling that we can't really connect with. This helps us contextualize it and hopefully get a better understanding of what affects stress for us. So at the top there, we have what stresses flow into the container. So this can be day-to-day stress. It could be things that happen maybe on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, or maybe just things that happen once a year, but it's all of your stress going into this container. So that blue part there in the middle represents sort of water filling up the container. The idea is that vulnerability is expressed through the different sizes of the container. So my container could be a totally different size to someone else's, and thereby I might only be able to take so much stress relative to someone else. The last part at the bottom there is what can we do to let that stress out? What relieves stress for us? Again, if vulnerability is expressed by the size of the container, then we know if it gets too full, that's when we might be thinking about things like mental illness or mental ill health generally, when stress is becoming a little bit too much. So what can we do to let that out? So what I would like you to do is pause this presentation, but before you do that, try and just get a vague idea of what we have written down there for the diagram. So we're just looking for a box at the top, the triangle, and a box at the bottom. And at the box at the top, I would like you to write what stresses there are in your life at the moment. Think about as many examples as you can. Again, this will help contextualize stress. And at the bottom, have a think about what relieves stress for you. Again, think of as many examples as you can. It doesn't have to be every day. It could be once a week or once a year, something that you know relieves stress for you, as many examples as you can. So go through that, take your time. I would say about 5 to 10 minutes is probably the right amount of time for most people, but just play the presentation when you're ready to go again. But take your time and make sure you have a good think about this activity. Excellent. So now that we've had a look at what's in our stress container, we can start to think about the way that we expand on that, the way that we can help further contextualize our stress. So firstly, we can identify healthy and unhealthy forms of stress relief and how this can impact our well-being. So for example, a lot of people like to have a glass of wine on a night to relax. If that becomes so repetitive that we need to do that every day to feel some form of stress relief, and or we need to increase the volume of wine that we're having just to feel any benefit from that, that can obviously be unhealthy and impact our long-term well-being. So think about some of the things that you have down there that might be healthy or unhealthy in terms of impacting your well-being, especially over the long term. It might not be things that you currently are doing at the moment, but it could be things that you've done in the past, and we're trying to recognize patterns and how that ultimately affects our long-term well-being. Understand your individual relationship with stress. We all experience stress at varying levels. Avoid comparing yourself to other people. Very, very easy to do. And especially the way that we often talk about stress, you'll hear people say things like, oh, you know, I'm working full-time hours plus overtime, I've got 6 kids and I can still manage to do all of those things. That's all fine and well, but we're all different. We all experience stress differently, and there isn't a right and wrong with that. What we're trying to do is understand our own relationship with stress and what we need to do to feel better about ourselves. And also plan what changes you could make to encourage stress relief more regularly. It's very, very easy to get into a routine where you're not taking good care of yourself or doing what you need to do to feel better about yourself, especially around things like work. So think about when you're going to set aside time for yourself and how you might go about that more regularly. Plan what activities you might like to do with your time, and make use of things that relieve stress for you. So this part is associated to self-help and CBT. If anyone's come across CBT before or haven't, that's cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's a form of self-help. We'll take a look at some of the self-help things that we can use, but this is one useful part. So with regards to CBT and the place that this comes into the stress container that we've been using, if we go back, if you have a look at the bottom there, what can we do to relieve stress? How do we encourage the water out of the container, the stress to flow out? What happens if that's blocked? What happens if there's nothing currently relieving stress for us, or the things that used to work aren't working anymore? What do we then do when that container's filling up and we're feeling the effects of stress all the more? Well, we can use CBT. CBT works on the principle that there's a stimulus, something happens, there's a response, in other words, we react to what is happening, and then there's an outcome, which is the result of how we react to what has happened. So an example of this might be being stuck in traffic. That might be the stimulus. That's what's happened. My response might be quite negative. I might get angry. I might take that out on myself or others. And the outcome of that might be quite negative. And obviously that's not something that we would want. If that was to keep happening with different stimulus, so different things were happening through the day and I kept having a negative response, I'm not going to feel great at the end of the day. So this time we can think about changing our response. So if this time the stimulus is still being stuck in traffic, I might plan my response to be a breathing exercise. Purposefully think about using a breathing exercise as my response to something bad happening. And that's not to say that it'll work for everything that might happen within your day, but it's something that we can help to reduce our stress generally. So stuck in traffic, I've changed my response. This time I'm going to use some breathing exercises. The outcome to that might be more beneficial. I might feel the effects of stress lessen and thereby be able to deal with other things that are happening through the day a little better. That's one form of CBT. Now we can use those things ourselves. You could use things like mindfulness exercises where you can focus on being in the here and now. There are also free applications that you can use to help you support you with that. And by all means, have a look after this session at what sort of things you might be interested in taking up with regards to CBT and self-help generally. So here are some other forms of general self-help. There are free NHS self-help guides that you can access, both on their website and on iOS and Android, completely free. If you search self-help on iOS or Android, you'll be able to get those on your smartphone or again on the website. And there's everything there from anxiety, stress, sleep and problems, and any issues with alcohol, that sort of thing. Whole spectrum of self-help guides that you can access. And again, completely free. So by all means, have a look at that if you're interested in reading up a little bit further. There's also free talking therapy. So if going through this exercise has brought up something that you think you might need to talk about in more detail with someone else, and you're not too sure if you have anyone in your life at the moment that you could that could support you in that way, then you can access free talking therapies, and obviously the contact details are there. There are also self-help and support with regards to suicide and loneliness helplines as well. So Samaritans, Calm and Silverline, all slightly different in terms of what they're offering, but the gist is the same. They're there to help support you. So if you think you need a little bit of help and someone to talk to, just reach out. That's what they're there for. Excellent. So we'll move on to sleep. So a common cause of stress is lack of sleep, which causes more stress and in turn causes less sleep. This relationship is important in understanding how we work towards positive outcomes for ourselves. We need to understand how we're feeling and why we're feeling that way. Other common causes for poor sleep can include things like work, presenteeism, absenteeism, work-life balance, financial concerns, relationships, illnesses, disabilities, and even mental health generally. Try to identify what other causes of poor sleep might be affecting you. And again, you could do this at the end of the activity. Just use the A4 sheet that you've been using. But it is important that you reflect on this and try to think about all of this in the context of your own life. So, what can we do to encourage healthier sleep and habits? Try thinking about the conditions we set for children when creating a bedtime routine. Setting a bedtime, for example, waking up at a routine time, creating a dark and comfortable environment, limiting exposure to light before bed, particularly blue light from TVs and smartphones, avoid eating and drinking immediately before bed, and avoiding caffeine and high sugar intake, which can obviously affect us physically and mentally. These actions represent the building of healthy habits that our bodies respond to when creating conditions for sleeping. And it's quite common for us to think that these are appropriate for children in creating healthy habits, but because we're sophisticated, more advanced beings, it doesn't apply to us. And unfortunately, that's not true. We need those healthy habits and we respond to those healthy habits too. So it's very easy to fall into the trap of creating unhealthy sleeping habits, but inputting some of, or trying some of these tips for creating healthy habits can make all the difference in trying to create a healthy sleep routine and thereby have something to stick to longer term rather than quick fixes for sleep. So again, spend this time reflecting on what changes you could make to encourage healthier sleeping habits. By all means, pause the video or come back to it after the video. But it's very, very important that you think about this within the context of your own life and the changes that you could make. So, action plan. This is the part where we tie everything together, the part where we aim to change our own behavior based on the information that we're given. It's all well and good us presenting the information, but if it's not put into context and we're not committing to any changes, then nothing's really going to happen. So, this is how we can address that. Again, using an A4 sheet of paper, and it is important that you write this down, that you have something concrete to stick to, something written that you can use for reference. Write this down. So over the next 7 days, I will try. By all means, watch the video again, or if you've written notes as we go down, think about the things that we've covered that you could try to help influence a positive outcome for you, whether it's stress or sleep. Think about some of the tips that we've talked about already, some of the things that we've talked about that help relieve stress for you, maybe some things that you'd like to try that might relieve stress for you. And again, with sleep, some of the things that you could try to help build a more healthy sleep routine. Then once those 7 days are done, reflect on that. Think about what's worked and what hasn't worked for you. Very, very important in terms of long-term change. You need to think about things that you're willing to try, be enthusiastic and optimistic about what you're willing to try. Otherwise, nothing's really going to change. And again, reflect on that. Think about what is or isn't working. It's not a one size fits all. We're all different. We're all going to need different things. So have a think about what isn't working for you, and if you need any more support. So again, this workshop is tied in with our Be a Game Changer campaign. It's a mental health campaign. We work all across the region: Newcastle, North Tyneside, Northumberland, Gateshead, and also Sunderland Football Club's foundation, the Foundation of Light, mirror this campaign. They do a very similar job. So if that's either in your area or you know someone that is in that area that might benefit, by all means, access the services through them as well. We have a website with more information on support and some of the other things that we offer. The link is on the screen there, and we also have a Facebook group, which I would highly recommend that you join. It's an excellent tool in order to help people engage with like-minded people that either need some help or support, or a place to talk, to share. We've even had things like people share recent research, things that they found quite beneficial, right the way through to people feeling suicidal and needing some support. So a whole range of support there. And it also, if you join the Facebook group, it helps us grow our campaign. It helps us reach more people. So do consider joining our social media pages as well. So thank you for participating. We hope this workshop has helped and inspired you to work towards making positive improvements with your own health and well-being. Don't forget to try and put what you've learned today into practice. It makes all the difference. Again, there's a big difference between a presentation and us just giving you the information and it falling on deaf ears, and you actively trying to put this into practice. That's what will make the difference. So give some things a go, try and be optimistic, and we'd love to hear back on what has or hasn't worked for you. Generally, we'd love to hear your feedback on the session, and those are our contact details there for our health and wellbeing team. Thank you so much for your help and your support with our mental health campaign, and for taking the time to be part of our session. Thank you.